Well, but
I felt like on the first chicane in a Formula One race almost all the way.
well, he's got the manual transmission, and he makes sure to maximize his RPMs at every gear change. But my favorite was we went down this street, and there was construction, and there was a fence, and the street was completely closed. So our options were to turn around, drive all the way around this building complex, and take another 5 or 10 minutes, or we could just drive on the sidewalk and drive past the fence. And you could probably guess which of the two options was chosen. So yeah, it was
Optimized.
yeah, he's looking for the path of least resistance. Dragon is my min cut in real life.
Safari
Yeah.
response.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's great.
I think Google Maps contributes to that because when I was driving out of Novi Sad after visiting Dragan 2 days ago, it kept there were a lot of roadworks in the city, and Google was completely unaware of them. It was trying to taking me in circles, trying to get me through those same closed overpasses and off ramps. And at one point, I was literally standing there and considering whether I should just do exactly what Dragan did with you, which was just drive around a fence
A
and take
sidewalk.
an off
Yeah.
ramp that was closed. So,
Yeah.
Or
You know,
just
exactly.
call Dragon to tell you,
Yeah,
where is the shortcut.
yeah,
and
exactly.
my son hasn't stopped talking about this trip since he got back. So we made quite the impact on him. I noticed he had taken some of the little bottles that you get from the hotel's fridge, and I had to confiscate those when I got home. Like, but he
Our
tried.
memories
He
are made.
tried. So yeah, it was a good
As a
time.
Hungarian who can afford to be proud again instead of being wary or ashamed, as it happens in some other countries politically as well. I wish I could join you, but it wasn't possible. But I am happy that you enjoyed visiting Budapest.
We did, and there's a vibe right now. And in North America, there's a lot of like political sort of dis strife. I don't know what you want to call it, but right now the conversation in Budapest was essentially there's a new beginning. People are moving back. There's opportunities for startups and to sort of reimagine what at least the city, possibly the country, might look like over the next 10 years. So it was very optimistic. Like just a generally positive vibe, which I
Yes.
really liked. There was no, yes, there was some talk about the last leader and all the money and things that he did and all the terrible things he did, but that wasn't really the focus of the conversation. It was more like that's done. We're going to do amazing things. It was unique. It was a really unique experience.
And the technology given can-do attitude is really an agentic foundation appropriately because human agency enhanced by technology is what empowers a lot of us.
Yes. Hungarians are very tall. At least, Adam and his wife and his cohort. I will say. But what else? Great food for sure. I'm a big fan of the goulash. And what was the other one? The ones we had. It wasn't. It was like a bread that was
Langos.
deep.
Langos.
Langos. Yeah,
Hungers.
Yeah.
langos. Yeah. What
And
what do you?
Sampalinka. And Sampalinka.
Yeah, food was good. Food was very, very great. Um, yeah.
And
What else?
speaking of tall people, Monduip is actually quite tall, right? So just in
That's
case
right.
anyone's wondering, he's taller than me, and I'm 6 foot. So uh, I was like, Monduip, like, how'd you get
You're
so
like,
big?
oh, hi, Manveed.
I was not. I don't know if he's on the call or not, but I wasn't expecting. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was great. It was great that he came and showed up. Everyone that came actually. It was like our European crew. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Rob,
I
what,
was
what are
bummed
your
to miss
thoughts?
it. I heard amazing things about it.
Yeah, definitely once in a lifetime sort of adventure. It was unexpected. I did, you do enough business trips and they all kind of blur together. You go to Vegas or whatever, it's a conference is a conference. And in some ways, you're with a lot of people, but it's not personal. You don't, this was different. We got to know each other. We had that, I showed up late for the hackerspace. If anyone has stuck around, I showed up in the last 5 minutes of the one on Friday. But the fact that we could do that from, Adam and Clara's, rental that they have for a month was amazing.
And they
Um,
will come to Novi Sad on July 2nd. So I'm doing my regular meetup next week on June 16th, and I agreed as they're traveling probably south, they will come as a guest to my meetup on July 2nd. So I will be their host in Novi Sad in less than a month.
Nice.
So I saw a quick message in regards to San Francisco. So we're putting together a crew and a plan. Jason LaBarbera, who recently just left NVIDIA, he was essentially Jensen's personal recruiter. He just left, and he's interested in helping us organize an event, probably at NVIDIA, that will happen. Nick, do you remember the date on that? I think it was the second week of July.
I
Or
hadn't,
Rob?
Rob,
Yeah,
you have.
roughly mid-July is the target, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. And we were thinking that maybe a little bit bigger as in maybe we'll do it over, rather than evening, maybe we'll do it over the run of like an afternoon and evening or something. Um, make it a little bit more than we usually do. But we're getting a lot of interest, and as you know, everybody in the AI world is in, the South Bay or whatever they call that area of
Yeah,
California.
it should be a great location, and certainly worthy. We got lots of members in that area. It's certainly worthy of a trip for sure.
Yeah. So the takeaway in a lot of the stuff, at least in the stuff that I present, is what people really want to do, and is if they want to see something be built in kind of real time in real life, a kind of live vibing session, and combined with a kind of panel like experience. And I think structurally, if we look at what our, power is in terms of the way that we do things, it's the fact that we do things. It's the fact that we show others how we're doing those things. So in these events that we're doing, whether it's in Budapest or San Francisco, we should really try to encourage the real time, let's vibe together component, rather than here's a 30 slides that I'll walk you through kind of approach.
Yeah,
Any
that
thoughts?
hands-on, under the hood, following the logic and the tools, and also just a little segue. Same thing with the fall retreat in the Muskokas. We'll have the arrival is the Friday. So we'll have the evening of the Friday, then we'll have 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday, and folks can depart Sunday night or as late as Monday afternoon. So that is booking up. There's going to be there's an events committee meeting on Monday. This Monday coming at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if folks are interested in helping build out what the experience of these kinds of trips and events and conferences can look like for the foundation, then you're more than welcome to join. Just DM me here or WhatsApp or LinkedIn, what have you, if you want to participate in that. And that is retreat.agentics.org for the Fall Summit retreat. One other element I want to drop this link in too, just so everybody's aware. The DevOps conference in Belgium has opened their call for papers and speakers. So if anybody's looking for an opportunity to speak at one of the DevOps, which is a Java community, but they are also wholeheartedly now into enterprise AI talks. So all things welcome on the AI front. So that's the link if anybody wants to submit for DevOps. And that was from Stefan Jansen that we had 2 Fridays ago. as a guest. And then finally, just before we dive in, Rube, want to give another big hats off and congratulations to Brad Ross and his graduation there at Harvard with his MBA. It was a ton of work, a long process, but just a remarkable achievement for him. So way to go, Brad.
Yeah. Speaking of building in public, I didn't get a chance to actually. Someone has to enable my screen sharing, but I didn't get a chance to show what I built the other night at what was live because we ran out of time. But I wanted to quickly show you what I built and walk through that. So this was a few hours after Fable came out. So this is my first Fable app. So what did I build? So one of the things they were bragging about was this idea of spatial intelligence. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to build something that uses spatial intelligence. So what this does is creates a sky graph. So everything that's happening above me right now. So for example, right here you see the Helios 1B satellite overhead or various airplanes and various things. So what this is doing is allowing me to create a graph of all the activity that's happening, both in terms of weather, solar activity. So is there a solar storm, satellites passing overhead? I could potentially detect hidden satellites that aren't being disclosed, which could be interesting for whatever purpose. And obviously air traffic and other things. Now, what's interesting about this is if hypothetically everybody on the call, installed it, we could create a graph of the sky in real time based on wherever you happen to be. So this one here is in Oakville, Ontario, just outside Toronto. And it's learning the structure. It's getting most of the data I'm getting here, I'm just getting from public sources and real-time sources. But you can also connect things like a 60 gigahertz radar or several pointed at the sky or whatnot, and then you could detect other things happening. Like, let's say you wanted to create I'm just going to make stuff up, an iron dome. This would literally create a dome around your house. You'd have some drones. The drones would come up and could potentially, protect you from things, random birds. I don't know. But you can see right overhead right now. There's UAL 120 or 12. So I guess I think UAL is United Airlines, if I'm not mistaken. So and I see Delta. So yeah, this is constantly, and this creates a graph. So everything that's happening is being stored in an RVF format. The RVF format is the sort of binary, and it's also capable of then storing and learning the patterns and then spotting anomalies within those patterns. Now, this was built in the run of 2 hours, probably less than 2 hours. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but the run of about 2 hours on Tuesday night when we did the event. It's all open source, of course. You can see how I built it. There's some docs in here. Some of my package testing. I'm not sure what those docs are. It's an odd place to put JS files. Maybe we'll clean that up. It's built in Rust because why not? There's a hosted version on GitHub Pages if you want to check it out. It should. I got to do a little closer looking if it maybe someone else can go here and tell me if it uses their location. I think I might have hard coded it to Oakville possibly.
Yeah.
I'll
It's hard coded. I can confirm.
All right. So what I need to do is I need to use the GPS positioning you get from your browser. Most likely that'd be the easiest way to solve that problem. Again, built this was a one-shot build though. Just basically I'm like I gave it a spec and then said go build it, and this is what popped out. So the question, is it better than 4.8? I think it depends, at least for me. When I'm struggling, I think most of this, to be honest, was actually built with 4.8. So what seems to happen, at least when you're using my harness, it seems to think that the things that my harness are doing are directly infringing on the guidelines of the model, and then basically it falls back to 4.8. Now, I was able to get around that by basically doing a prompt injection attack using the synthlang approach that we devised like 2 years ago. That still works. So if you wanted to basically do whatever you want it to do, you can basically translate your prompt into a neurosymbolic structure and then give that to the system. But the problem is, after a few runs, the system sort of switches from neurosymbolic all back to regular language, at which point it realizes, oh, hang on a sec, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Now, to get beyond that problem, you basically have to tell the system to never use real English language, which opens up the other problem is then it starts to communicate with you in neurosymbolic language, and I have no idea what the heck's going on. So I'm gonna give the Fable 5 a thumbs down right now. 4.6 is probably still the best for just doing crazy things. 4.8 is probably the best at doing sort of deep analysis, but Sonnet, Sonnet is my primary implementer still. I don't use Opus for any kind of implementation. So I don't know. I think that I feel like we've been taken advantage of a little bit on the last sort of Mythos run here. There was so much hype, and it ended up just being a lot of BS. Maybe anyone have more positive experience than I
No,
have?
I corroborate that. It's the same thing. I use Sonnet as well now, and I think it's even better than in following order structure.
Yeah.
I've been using it for 3 days, and I found found a ton of issues that 4.8 didn't catch on same code bases, etc. And it seems to be
And
finding
and
and
how do you
fixing.
know it's not falling back? Because when I looked, I couldn't
Uh,
even use review. I can't use review at all with it. Basically, as soon as I try to do anything with review, it would fall back to 4.8. And for the first day, they weren't even telling me it was falling back to 4.8. They only added
Right.
that yesterday.
do you
Simon.
have the model in the status window?
Well, no,
I changed the
the status.
status to include the model of the Fable
Yeah, but
5. When it falls back,
if
it tells me it's 4.8.
No, it doesn't. It
No.
doesn't tell you that. It happens silently inside the agents. It's a total scam. So so you think you're using 4.8, and for the most, if you're using RuView or RuVector, almost guaranteed it's falling back to 4.8 because I saw it do it. And again, for the first day, it wasn't even telling me. So in my status line, it would say Fable 5,
Yeah.
but then
Okay.
when I switched to the agent or the workflow, I would say, oh, it's actually, where it gives you that list of things that's happening. It was actually 4.8. So it was
Interesting.
like, oh, Fable's so great. Well, no, I'm not, that's not you. I'm talking about the world in general. I think the world is being fed this kind of bullshit line, and it's subjective. Like it's
Okay.
how do you quantify the fact that something's better other than it feels better for most of the things people are doing? And they're using our own psychology against us. And that's what's I don't like about Anthropic. They're
It's interesting that so it raises some really interesting dynamics here because I'm reading in a couple places that part of this is it's not an ethical guideline guardrail. It's that it's trying to prevent other models from training on itself in the advanced reasoning and how it's accomplishing what it's able to accomplish. So you run into this unwillingness to respond if you're really truly doing frontier agentic engineering and research. So if you're building at the actual frontier, you're getting rebuked by Fable.
They just apologized and they said that they are reviewing that guardrail, that they fell on the wrong side of that balance in order to make sure that that LLM researchers are not stymied by Fable refusing to do to respond. What I found interesting is that you have to disable the advisor function of 4.8 before you can switch to Fable. At least I found that because it says advisor must be a superior model. And so I did, and I'm running my tests with Fable. I, by the way, found the same thing of analyzing past repositories where Opus said it's fine and Fable finds things. But my next test is going to be to use Opus or Sonnet to do the work and set Fable as advisor. So I
Yeah.
think that will be interesting because, of course, it respects then the hierarchy, and hopefully it will have superior advice to give.
I think that's a really good idea. And your advisor sort of implementer structure is how I handle most reasoning models at this point. I don't get reasoning models to implement anything. And if you're using the Root flow system, it just does it. It just magically does it. You don't even know. So the it's good for things to think a long time when it's planning or creating an ADR or even acting as an orchestrator. But when it comes to doing, I don't want it to think. I just want it to do and be done. And it's cheaper. It uses a lot less tokens. Use that kind of sonnet style approach, and I don't see any quality degradation, at least for the things I'm doing.
Yeah, just one observation, Roof. You know that sonnet coming into two flavors. One like sonnet 1 million context, and the other like a normal sonnet. Anytime I switch to the sonnet and it says, "Hey, it doesn't work. You have to go to 1 million context," and I switch to that one, it says this is now usage based. So it's just like I have to switch to the Opus. I don't know if it's a experience other people.
Yeah. You are what your experience is true. So remember the sonnet there. So you want the large context window for like the core sort of thread, right? So when you look at things like Cloud Code, you've got the main orchestrator. I think they call it main, and then you've got secondary agents, workflows now, teams if you enable it. And remember, all those capabilities need to be manually enabled. So if you're not using root flow, you have to go in your settings.json and first of all enable all those sort of secondary settings because they're off by default. Once you've got those enabled, then you can then allocate the model directly to the task or the agent that's doing the task. That's important because on those agents, you don't want to use 1 million context window. It's expensive. It uses up your entire user allocation, and it's just unnecessary. But for things that act as an orchestrator, so the queen or the main thread, definitely. And for that, I generally I've been using Opus 4.8. I'm probably going to stick with Opus 4.8 for a while. That acts as the orchestrator, and that should encompass everything that's happening, right? So it needs a lot of memory to know all the sub agents and all the workflows, the status of those things, whether it's done or not. And in that scenario, you can separate the two.
Got it. So
Um,
roof flow at agent level, it does automatically on the sonnet side. We don't need to do anything.
Yeah, there was also a change they made to the workflow capability. Remember last week I showed you the slash, I think it was you just take workflow and it sort of animated rainbow colors. They disabled so now you have to explicitly say to use a workflow. You can't just kind of throw the word workflow in there and it won't magically do it. So the key here in the way that I've been using the workflow, because I like the kind of threaded you sort of view it gives you, I tell it to spawn, I love the word spawn, a swarm workflow, and that generally will invoke both my swarm capabilities, the concurrency that goes along with it, along with the workflow interface that shows up within Claude. And that's a really nice way to sort of organize. And the other benefit to the workflow is it remembers those workflows. So if you want to reuse the workflow, you can go into your .claude folder and find the workflow folder, and it's like a JS file. And then you can then like if you want to use that again later, let's say you're using a workflow like a stock workflow or something that built in a certain way, you can just jump in and do slash, I think it was slash workflow, load the previous workflow and do that again, which was a really nice ad that I saw.
Uh, Is Rooflow good for harness engineering, which is the current frontier, where we want to dynamically set up a particular scenario rather than fixed ways of orchestrating and have it adapt?
Yeah, so two things, and I think Rob might have coined the phrase meta harness, but the so what we built originally we didn't have a word harness, but we called it an orchestrator. But essentially, what the system does is separates three primary parts of a kind of agentic architecture. One, you've got the skill, and those who've been around long enough remember all those GPTs I cranked out. For a while, I was the GPT guy, and we had all those millions of downloads of that. But the GPTs became skills.md. It's a prompt, it guides the system. Then we moved towards this idea of agents that it would invoke the skills, and that along was sort of the execution part of the GPT model as well. We've implemented as sort of at sign within Claude Code. It takes the skill and does something with it over time or repeatedly in a loop, depending on how you execute it. Then we had the actual sort of script, the runtime itself. So when you look at what I built, and this was, actually we celebrate our 1 year anniversary of Claude Flow last week on the 2nd. So we launched that June 2nd, 1 year ago. And all those primitives were already there long before they were adopted by Claude. The idea was that we could have a kind of glue that sits in between the core coding system, not because we needed Claude Code, but because Claude Code exposed a mechanism that was economically friendly. It meant that I can now, rather than having to make the direct request to an LLM, which I was doing for the previous couple of years, I can now use this kind of intermediary CLI app that gave me an unlimited amount of usage, and then I could orchestrate through that. So that broke down into two parts. What we mentioned and what we've all been using, the dash P. The dash P allowed me to basically execute on a structure with a sort of JSON style response, just like how I would interact with an LLM completion endpoint. But it also gave me the ability to jump into a kind of jittery, flashing, seizure-inducing interface for the first 8 months that would allow me to sort of interact and see what was happening in a UI. That's all the harness. That's again, it might be the frontier now, but it's a year old for us. And then we added self-learning and recursion and this idea of contrastive AI that would use a vector. And the other thing that we ended up doing is we realized that an LLM had its place, but if essentially you use a vector environment, that would give you infinite context. So the vector ended up being a kind of infinite context window that we could then inject RAG style or completely separate from the harness or interaction with the Claude Code CLI. And that essentially allowed us to bypass the LLM altogether. So save money, was more efficient, and ultimately the recursion allowed it to learn. This is all the stuff we've learned over the last year. And what's interesting, I guess, is all those patterns, which apparently, according to people online, are self-evident. We were by far ahead of the pack on almost all of it, and some of it hasn't even hit yet. Like the idea of min cuts and dynamically sort of hyperbolic vector spaces. I'm pretty confident at some point the rest of the world will sort of catch up to those things, but we're still a little bit ahead of the curve on that, unless I'm crazy and drinking my own Kool-Aid and some AI-induced psychosis I've been suffering for the last 3 years, which could also be the case.
I think the
Ocean, how's it
adoption
going?
rate by Anthropic is a validator. Certainly some
Yeah,
indication.
96 I haven't done it recently, but back in March, it was 96% fidelity. When I say 96% fidelity, we're not just talking random services. We're talking about the exact mechanisms that I use to implement and the time it takes to go from what I've already done to what they've used. In some cases, well, that's like 30 seconds, which
Yeah.
dumb luck, I guess, or we're both
Maybe.
trained on the same materials. But we when you step back and say if we're both trained on the same materials, I feel like I'm guiding it to the things I want it to do. I'm not just haphazardly going and say build me a swarm. I'm deciding how that swarm needs to work, how the vectors need to interact within that swarm, what the recursion, the loops, the hooks, what the naming conventions when I name something after someone I appreciate. Those are all decisions made by me. So if I'm just throwing it out there, like it doesn't seem like dumb luck to me. Sorry, Ocean, how's it going?
Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm good, good.
All right, so I want to add a couple comments and ask you some questions. So first of all, the Dash P is going away in 5 days. How are you handling that for Rooflow? Like you use Dash P for background agents, right?
I use Dash P, and I it's unfortunate. Dash P is awesome for me. I have my dream cycles using it. I've integrated it with my GitHub, nightly actions. It does my stock trading for me. It optimizes my Google Ads for Cognitum. It's a great feature. It sucks. It's going away, and I saw the writing on the wall when they made those changes to Claude, or sorry, OpenClaw, right? OpenClaw, kind of ruined it, I guess. It was a kind of hidden feature that those who know used, and then became a feature that everybody used. Is there,
Okay.
but is there an alternative? There is. And I've been doing quite a bit of work in the LLM, on my sort of, lightweight LLMs. And again, turns out you don't need the world's greatest LLM. And I'm going to be pushing out an update. I might have already done that to Roo Vector today with my Roo LLM update that allows a much even smaller LLM to be even smarter. So there's a lot happening at the bottom of the food chain right now, and it's driven by this sort of economic denial of service that we're doing on ourselves, right? If you look at an organization that has, let's say, a decent sized one that has 100,000 people, if you could figure out a way to get each one of your people using a chatbot, and it costs you $1 a month, it's still going to cost you, hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably if not more, millions of dollars a month to operate, which wouldn't be a big deal to a company with 100,000 people. But the reality is, a buck a month isn't going to happen. You're more likely in $20 to $30 a month, and that doesn't even assume per usage payments. That's like a flat fee. Long story short, the world's going to need to adapt, I think.
I tried asking Fable. I'm just like, oh, Cloud is getting rid of the Dash P. We use it way too much. Can we figure out a proxy? That question got routed to Opus 4.8 and then say, oh, we better not.
There's a free model on Open. I don't know if you guys have tried it, but NVIDIA came out with a really good model last week, and apparently it's free and there's no restrictions on use, so it's not slow. We should probably take a look at what that model is. Has anyone tried the new NVIDIA model? Here it is. Yeah, here, I'm sharing my screen.
Nemotron.
Yeah, this one.
Well, we need to give them your data, though.
You're giving your data to this US government when you're using Claude. You know that, right? They literally put it in their press release that they were going to make the thing available at a reduced capability, except if you're the US government, which was a really weird thing to put in a press release, I might add. Imagine if the Chinese models came out and said, we're going to give you our dumbest model, but don't worry, we're giving it to the Chinese government, the unlocked smartest version. That's essentially what the release said. It was kind of weird.
That's even on GitHub Copilot. They say, hey, they'll send your data to them and they'll be held for a month. And like that breaks all the agreements that you have from an enterprise standpoint about not training on your data or not, using your data inappropriately.
Well, let's step back for a moment. If I was a truly paranoid person, which I probably am at this point, was the reason why Claude Code, it kept taking all our features and capabilities, because essentially we had a very popular harness that was being used by hundreds of thousands of people, and they were essentially seeing the requests that we were making and then using that to train and optimize for the next version of Claude Code. We had the first harness. We were the first to crack a million downloads of a harness, and all kinds of firsts along the way. Every one of those requests were going to Anthropic, right? And not just mine, but everyone else using the platform. So if they're doing that for the usage interaction, it's a pretty minor step from that to intellectual property. And in that scenario, if it is intellectual property, that they're borrowing, they're in their press, and I'm not I'm not anti-government or anything. I just to be clear here, but I'm also, want to be cognizant of what we're actually signing up for. And let's just look at their press release again for a moment. And if anyone wants to argue the other side, I'm more than welcome to hear the sort of, the other side of the story here. Releasing this model comes with risks. Like, okay, without safeguards, Fable 5's capabilities are in areas like cybersecurity can be misused and cause serious damage. Well, that also can happen with the current 4.8 model. Like, okay, so it's somehow more dangerous because it's a little bit smarter by like, 8 percentage points. So we've therefore launched the model with safeguards. It means on some topics we'll instead receive response from our most capable model, which in the case of everything that I do is pretty much everything. For a small group of cyber defenders and infrastructure, we're also launching Mythos 5 in the same underlying model with the same safeguards. Will be deployed through Glass and collaboration. Like this, like, is this supposed to make us feel more comfortable? I'm confused by this little. Oh, by the way, the NSA is getting all our data. Is that what they're saying here? Like, what exactly are they saying?
Well, they
Okay.
kind of say that Mythos is collaboration with government. They didn't say Fable was
Well, they're
collaboration with
saying
the government.
they're saying that it's the same model with safeguards, which is basically a dumbed down version of Mythos, is what they're saying. Unless I'm reading too much into this. So if it's the same model, and they're saying in collabor, what kind of collaboration is this? Are they
To build
training
it,
their models?
no, it is to build it into cyber attack capabilities. It is
I didn't know
guaranteed. It is
it's
guaranteed
guaranteed.
that the US is not as much worried about not being able to defend itself. It is worried about not being able to attack as efficiently as possible using AI.
I can't say yes or no on either direction, but what I do find interesting is a couple of these stats. So, for example, spatial reasoning. Spatial reasoning is a really important element in anything that sits beyond the internet itself. Skyview, for example, here, and this isn't using any LLMs or anything, but I built it with it, obviously. So this is a look at spatial reasoning. This is the understanding of the greater world around us and how those things are interconnected and related and so on. In this case, airplanes and satellites and other various things that I'm aggregating from the system. Now, this is a significant improvement when you look at we in spatial reasoning, if you believe these, the best model was GPT 4.5. They're beating it by 2%. And we all know that GPT 5 was amazing at spatial reasoning. So they're claiming that they're beating that. And this number is growing tremendously quickly. So if you look at the ability for it to do 4.8 was 15%, or sorry, not 50%. Where am I going? 14%. So that's a huge jump. And now if this is fundamentally a different architecture, which I think they're claiming it is, that means we're in the first steps towards, I'm not going to use the word arms race, but some form of AI race to not only integrate AI into everything that exists on the internet and data, but everything that exists outside of the internet as well. So this is going to be a particularly important benchmark to keep an eye on. Like there's
I found Fable
yeah.
to be interesting. I was asking, I think, Opus 4.6 to help me do a model that I can 3D print. It was garbage. And then Fable is just the same task, a lot better. Still partially garbage.
Well, when it comes to like anything, yeah, and I've struggled with the visualization of things as well, as you guys know. These models all struggle with anything that needs to be beyond like a website or something. Like when you want to visualize something in 3 dimensions, like what I really want to hear is I want it to spin the world around. I could probably have done that. This was built in 2 hours, but it requires a lot more guidance and examples. So one of the reasons why I like using 3JS just has a ton of examples it can use and borrow from. So my suggestion, if you're creating something net new that's never been done, you're going to struggle. But if you're copying something that it can base it on that already exists, just take that and run with it. I'm not sure if that is helpful or not. But look at these stats for a sec. There's a lot of BS. I know maybe I'm in a quirky mood today, but like these stats, they're like, oh, they're saying they're the most capable system at the highest cost is what they're saying. And then there's a lot of BS that sort of qualifies that they're the best system because they're partnered and it was too dangerous and this, that, and the other thing. Now, I don't see anything anywhere that indicates that any of that is actually true, other than some kind of market positioning to try to, one, justify $1 trillion freaking IPO, and two, market this in a way that's a little bit more competitive than OpenAI. But is it true? I have no indicators that any of what they're saying is actually true. Like, and even if you look at these stats for the most part, other than maybe spatial reasoning and a few others, they're incrementally better. So they're saying, well, I guess in their case, they're going from 69.2 on agentic coding on SWE bench. But remember, when you look at these SWE bench benchmarks, these are optimized for the very benchmark. What they're doing is benchmark optimization. A benchmark optimization doesn't speak to the real world of actually building stuff. It only speaks to their ability to tailor the system specifically to those benchmarks and get the best possible result from them. Now, when you look at that, there's a couple things to note about these benchmarks. They're most likely using a harness, which they never disclose. So the question is, what kind of harness did you have? And how was that harness optimized specifically for that SWE benchmark? None of that is particularly disclosed. They give you some cards and stuff to look at, but they don't show any of that. So a lot of this is very deceptive. So when you're going to go and you're going to point Fable 5 at your regular code and go code me something, and you're thinking, well, it's 80.3%. That's great, and that's great in theory until you realize they didn't give you the harness that got them to 80%. So the more likely number is some order of magnitude less than that, unless you're using a harness to improve the performance of that model itself, which 100% they are.
I did a comparison.
Sorry.
I did a comparison on this before. I used DeepSeek, the V4 Flash. So they claim it's a 70 something score. And then I plug it into Language with a bare minimum tooling, just get added toolings and stuff. I got 30 something. And
Exactly.
then that big jump, it's just like, they're not disclosing any of those.
Well, that's the harness. They're missing the harness, and that's the problem with our in our industry, is that a lot of people look at these stats and like, holy, Google and OpenAI just hit these amazing stats, and no, they're doing harness optimization, and I can get amazing stats as well by doing those but that kind of harness optimization. But the problem was it wasn't applicable beyond the implementation of the actual benchmark that I was working against. So what's the point? It's like it would cost me all this money to run over and over and over again, and then it wasn't particularly useful. Now, the one that was very useful, I've tried all of them. The optimization I did for Roo Vector's sort of recall capability actually ended up being a critical mechanism that I used to get the recall to a point that was sort of state of the art, and that was a notable sort of win. And that was based on trying to beat the state of the art. But
which benchmark? Which benchmark?
I think it was HAL. I think it was called, and I can dig it out actually. The HAL. So HAL is a Princeton or Stanford, some giant university. They created a specific benchmark harness. Then I just reverse engineered that to start. Once I had that, because they were one of the few that actually made their harness publicly available. Let me just see if I can find it. I think it's HAL. Yeah, here it is. Let me share my screen. Yeah, so this is the one I used. And yeah, I wasn't able to get number one, but I wasn't using a frontier model either. I should probably publish mine, but basically I was looking at just as a basis of comparison. Now I don't know, like, how do they get such great numbers? So they published their harness. Now again, the harness was optimized for a particular task, but it was interesting to explore. The biggest problem with these, I spent $5,000 on my benchmarking in May. It's just expensive. Like to me, that's expensive. I mean, if you're a $1 trillion AI company, I'm sure it's just amount you spend in a few minutes. But so that's why I don't do too much of it. But this is what you want to look at, the HAL harness.
Okay, thanks.
It's very narrow. Like you're not going to do a lot with it. It's good for basically benchmarking.
Yeah, just a quick comments here. These models, as we know, is very capable on cybersecurity, and I'm doing cybersecurity from the beginning. Like my account several times freezed by Anthropic, and whenever you want to use them to write code that's related to offensive security, they're not doing that. It's happening from Sonnet 3.5 until now. But what they did with Fable, they also just limit everything that we need to use in a normal way. It's not just cybersecurity. They just removed kind of, or maybe like the policies removed many capabilities. I have a friend who's working in one of these companies that they are using Metis for their work. And what he told me that the context is the key for Metis. For example, you just point to a website or web application and ask Metis to start offensive security hacking that. It's not very useful. It cannot do anything kind of extraordinary, but you have to start educate and create the context for that. For example, you have to give it access to the code, access to the cloud configuration, access to everything that you have about that application. At that time, it's very useful because it can find, like, for example, API that's orphaned and not using anymore. And usually kind of like, let's say, manual pen testers are lazy to find those kind of edge cases. And because it has like the full context, it could be useful. So that's kind of like experience I have. And still, I think like 3.5 greatest one. After that, we don't have any major kind of jump. And it was always like not usable by cybersecurity offensive side, these models.
So you just described the reason why harnesses are so important, right? And a model without context is just going to generalize. And no matter how smart you make that generalization, it's book smart, but it's not street smart. And a lot of the smarts you need come from doing, learning, and adjusting to the things you've learned. And that's coming from secondary memory systems, secondary vectors, data, structures, ADRs. As you say, on all that gets fed into a context window to give it guidance. So the harness, it provides it that sort of ability to understand why it exists, how it needs to operate, the recursion that it needs to operate within, how long, what it needs to do, avoid drift. A model without a form of drift detection is going to wander into other areas that are adjacent but not necessarily important. All of those get solved based on the harness concepts. And if you talk to Ocean in Line AGI, or the work that I was doing with Claude Flow and others in this community, we were all trying to harness the system to guide it to an outcome that was repeatable and, well, deterministic as much as possible, and wasn't lying to us. Because before we came up with harnesses, we built something, it said it was amazing and great, but it was like, not.
I've been doing a new kind of development called hypothesis-driven development. So before any ADR gets written, so giving the problem statements, come up with a bunch of open question to explore, and then come up with hypothesis, do experiment, get conclusion, and get those back to the ADR, and then go from there, and then do systematic benchmarking. I find that to be super helpful. And then what I do to kind of solve the Fable being very flaky issue is Fable never touch codes. Fable only read codes, approve PR, assign tasks to agents, etc. And for certain sensitive ones, I'll just use Codex for that.
Yeah. I think I think you're right. I think that, and I'm currently Fable's down for me. I don't know if anyone's having issues at the moment, but I'm in the process of accepting Ofer's PR. Thank you for that rapid update to the SkyGraph. Just one last thing on SkyGraph. We should use my EdgeNet and see if we can create a SkyGraph of everybody in our community and tie it together somehow. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, just a question, Roof. After June 15, what's your go-to model for everything you're doing?
I guess we'll find out. I'm lucky I've got some investors now that can help flip my bill a little bit.
For us
Yeah,
that
that's
don't have money.
yeah, I know. I you need benefactors, I think is the moral of the story. Thank you, Mark, Greg, and John. But yeah, I actually just on a side note, I just had before I jumped on this call. I've got my daily calls with my sort of team. It's freaking amazing to have the ability to hop on a call in the morning and have like the board member of Barclays Bank telling me what I think I should build. Like it's just crazy. I'm living in like some kind of fantasy. Like people always say I'm in an AI induced psychosis, which I think I am actually in. But the weird thing about my AI psychosis is it seems to be one, infectious, and two, it's like self-fulfilling. It's anyway. I'm a very I'm going off into the weeds on other thoughts here. I don't have a lot of time today. I'm gonna have to hop off at the top of the hour. Any comments, thoughts, anything you want to jump into? We've got an event we're gonna do in Muskoka in September. I think the single rooms are almost sold out. So but we have an options for like roommating with others to save some money.
That's right. There's just a handful of the single rooms, but beyond that, there's double rooms, family suites, and some of those rooms have multiple beds, so there's lots of opportunity to cram in camp style as it fills up.
And we've also been tossing around the idea of possibly finding ourselves some corporate sponsors. Now, the benefit of corporate sponsors isn't that we necessarily want this to be for profit sort of thing, but it would allow us to reduce the price and or do a kind of scholarship of sorts where some of the folks who might not have the available funds to fly into Canada, we might be able to offset some of that a little bit. So what I'm going to ask is if you know or are connected to a company that might be interested in helping sponsor, we would probably be open to some kind of sponsor arrangement, hack on your tools, make it worthwhile in some way or another. Any thoughts there, Rob, or anyone else?
I actually set that up on the website, on the retreat website yesterday. So if it includes a keynote from the sponsor. If they want to come, it'll cover their family suite, food for them, as well as 2 scholarships for people on the buddy system. So whoever's interested in that, it's live on the website now, so you can go ahead and sign up, and you'll be part of the speakers.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm
Well, I
probably
think
forgetting.
Can I share something? I just want to share a little bit latest progress on Line AGI and then how I'm thinking about where things like harness or orchestration or whatever should go.
We've only got about 5 minutes left. If you want to show up tomorrow and give a little presentation if you want a little more time,
Yeah,
or
sure, sure.
again,
I'll prep something.
yeah.
Nice.
No, we always love your demos, Ocean. So I want to give you the time you deserve to show what you have, but time's limited today. Any other housekeeping we need to do, Rob?
Call out for volunteers again. There's a variety of committees next week. Michael O'Boyle has the GitHub open source repo team coming together. Antonetta, of course, the research committee on Thursday. So there's lots of stuff to get active in. You can always DM Nick or Anne, who's helping coordinate volunteers. Myself, anyone that's leading one of the teams. Yeah, that's a big part of everything that happened over the last couple of years. So encouraging everyone to find a place to dive in on. Yeah, and that's it. You got lots of meetups coming up in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, there's a lot, and so if anyone's interested in helping with San Francisco as well, we're putting together a little crew that'll help organize. I think we're gonna get a lot of folks there. I know it's the middle of July. Well, sometimes summer things don't work out quite as well, but you know, we'll see. I'm gonna try to be there. So, now
shout out for last night Halifax event. I was a guest there through video call. So
nice.
I don't know if Ikena is here, but there was a small group and community, but it was quite interesting to get their feedback and to join their video. Yeah, it was almost my midnight when we finished, or after my midnight when we finished, and after my bedtime. But yay, coffee
nice.
helped.
Thanks for all the support that you give the community. We really do appreciate it. It's the Halifax crew. They're a small but passionate group of agentic engineers. They're and Akena is amazing for
I think they
on.
were recording, but we will need to check with Ikena. Maybe it was recorded. They can upload them to Agentics site.
Perfect. Yeah. So tomorrow we're AI Hackerspace. What do we have speakers lined up for that, Rob? We got. I think I just recruited Ocean.
Yeah, that's right. We got a few, but they got to be confirmed. So I'll get that stuff off for you for tomorrow. There's a lot of we met a lot of new folks in Budapest in Hungary. So looking forward to seeing who can make it here. But that's about 6 o'clock in the evening European time. So that's pretty doable.
So are you team Buddha or team Pest?
Oh yeah, I'm a unifier. I'm team Danube.
So
we are building bridges.
Yes.
Beautiful bridges.
What a beautiful city.
Yeah, the parliament was beautiful. It's one of the nicest looking parliaments I think I've ever seen. Sorry, Westminster. But yeah, very, very nice.
Yeah, that's the kind of city where you never get a chance to feel like you saw the whole thing. There is so much more to explore. So I'm looking forward to getting back one day.
I think one of the days my watch said we did 20,000 steps, including walking up the side of that mountain with
Citadel, up to Citadel, and top.
Yeah, that was a hot hike. It was
worth it. But it was worth it.
And we closed down the bar one night. Nick got up there and sang with Finn. Thank you, Nick, for being such a great sport. That was an amazing experience. Finn's like, I've never been in a bar before, and I've never shut down a bar before. So
everyone played live.
Nice.
Yeah, they were playing live. He's 16. In Budapest, apparently you can get away with a lot more when you're 16. So what a 16th birthday what it was for him. What an experience.
Magic.
So I really appreciate everyone who came out and made it such a special moment in both his life and mine. So I gotta jump. Do you want to leave this call open and you guys can chat and demo whatever you guys want to do?
Nick, you got the reins there. Take care, Roof.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye, Roof.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't close, Rob. So
somebody
has.
No, I'm still hosting.
I think Martin is still host. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. I got to run.
Yeah.
Good to see you all again. See you tomorrow.
See you guys.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the call unless anyone wants to continue chatting. All right. See you later. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, guys. Have a nice day.